All right, welcome back to the Adventure Media Podcast. I am Trent.
I am Christian.
And we are here with Jeff and Zaid Ismail from America. These guys have been a longtime supporter now of Unreal Adventure and everything, and we are ecstatic to have them here. We're just going to talk a little bit about the history of the company. Kind of what the plans are in terms of the future, talk a little bit about your rigs and things like that. And so let's just dive into it. So Jeff, obviously, is the owner of IH Parts. And Jeff, can you tell us a little bit about IH Parts and how it got started?
Well, like growing up, my dad had a couple internationals, one for his gardening and landscape business and one for going hunting and fishing and taking us camping in and stuff. And so we just, some families grow up in an old Chevy or an old Ford or Dodge. We grew up in old internationals, and it just kind of runs in our family. My brothers have internationals and we're just IH people. So that's where it kind of started. And then once I got my own first Scout, it wasn't long before some dude down the street who had a Scout was asking me if I could work on it for him because he didn't know anybody else. And, slowly it spawned into a business. And I think I first started in 96 and failed miserably by 99. But it was a learning experience, and went and worked for other shops for a few years. And back in 2004, after about 5 years hiatus, like I said, just working for other people, taking a college course or two, re-entered back into the business, and we haven't looked back. It's been over 20 years now.
That's awesome. So you kind of had a rough start and everything, but gave it another go. So
it was a great learning experience. You got to taste failure really to be successful, because once you know what it tastes like, you never want to have that taste
and
again.
It's a true family endeavor now. You've infected the young offspring with the IHPs.
Yeah. He's in charge. Zaid's in charge of a lot of new product development and business development, just moving the business forward. I'm over here at the house working on this thing behind me, several days a week instead of being in the office, and these guys are just moving forward with developing new parts and making things happen so that, more of these guys, these international harvester fans, have the parts that they need to continue their builds and keep their little family heritage and heirlooms going. So it's way cool.
Yeah. So talk about, for anyone who does not exactly know what IH Parts America does, like, what is your primary, I know you've told us, four-wheel drive isn't really, it's more restoration that's the focus of your business, right?
It is, yeah. Selling a lot of restoration parts basically all over the world, from body parts, patch panels, to engine parts, transmission parts, and then a lot of modernization components falling under our CPT line, our crawler proven technology line. So lift kits, overdrive transmissions, like parts for fuel injecting, whatever it is that they need, even OEM parts, just something that's not available. We just have, we go out and have it made. And
fuel tanks, radiators, all that stuff.
Yeah, all sorts of aftermarket parts, mostly, and we tested on these, like Hideous behind me has a lot of these parts, and then the White Scout's kind of getting a similar recipe underneath it to continue. We're out there testing our products and improving them by beating them to death, literally. But it's great. It's a full spectrum of parts that we're offering. And then we all actually have a full fab shop doing full frame-off restorations, a lot of modernization, a lot of LS swaps these days. Or, we're doing fuel injection and putting overdrive transmissions, just whatever the customer wants, as long as the job makes sense. So, we get some, it's like, that we'll just pass on, which we're generally pretty busy. Our shop's generally booked out 1 to 2 years.
Wow.
And then our other business that we have is binder books, which my wife runs, Norma runs, and reprinting. We're licensed to reprint all the service manuals, owner's manuals, parts catalogs for anything international harvester under the sun back to its infancy in the business. So It's really cool having our own little private library of information and being able to access that as we need to find a certain part or some history and stuff. So
That's cool.
Yeah, that's pretty much the bulk of the business.
Yes. So Zaid, your dad talked about, that you're kind of looking for new stuff or new ways to expand the business and stuff like that. How do you do that when the last International rolled off the line in 1980? So talk a little bit about that.
We get a lot of people that call us for common parts and common inquiries, and we kind of just deluge that into a list, and we just pick at it, day by day. We'll start knocking out categories. People want this axle shaft. We'll look into manufacturers to make that axle shaft. We'll get that project going. I'll usually solicit it to someone else to take over it, and then we'll just keep, booming down the line. And we're pretty much getting at least 15 to 20 new products a month at this rate. We're just always shocking the industry too. Even if it's far beyond our calendar year, a few months down the road, we'll still talk about it and at least gain interest on stuff to see, how much interest we have before, spending a lot of money in engineering something and releasing it before actually manufacturing it.
What's the biggest surprise product that you've had to have developed or bring back to market that you thought like, oh, I never would have thought they needed, XYZ component?
It's probably a tough one. I mean, there's a lot of things I like every day that are disappearing and coming back. Probably the biggest thing are like pistons.
That is a surprise.
Manufacturers like Silverlight, Mall, like a lot of those big manufacturers, even though there's plenty of demand, just don't want to make it regardless of a purchase price of an initial batch. So we're constantly looking at companies to actually make pistons, because no one actually makes pistons for international harvester engines anymore, unless it's just a couple varieties for a couple engines. That's just about it.
And then the sizes too. So yeah, it's like every day there's always some crisis going on with trying to find a part for these engines. It's like, for a while it's camshafts, for a while it's lifters, and then it's bearings, and then, now it's pistons. It's like, the saga just never ends. I love these engines. I'll always keep finding a way to rebuild them and keep them on the road. I just love the way they run and drive and stuff. But it's definitely getting more challenging to keep them things going. So yeah,
that is cool about your personal rigs, Jeff. Is your tow rig, your travel all with the 392 in it, hideous behind you with the 392. You've got supercharged IH 4 cylinders on that you were showing us, and like everything. I think everything you own is powered by an IH engine.
Yeah, only the 1980 Terra diesel, which is the fact it had the factory Nissan diesel, turbo diesel in it. That's the only. And then Zaid
that
recently.
Counts, though. I mean, hey.
No. And then Zaid just finished up Mellow Yellow Traveler. It's right off to the side of me here, and that's got a 5.3 LS in it. But otherwise, everything we own here is all still IH powered.
Talk about your little shop runner, the hot rod, the supercharged 4-banger. Tell everyone about that, because hey, I was over Jeff's house when I was picking up the S120, and he was giving me a tour of the property, which is spectacular. And he's like, "Hey, come over here," and he's got this little kind of mischievous grin on his face, and he pops the hood, and there's explain what you shared with me.
So it's a supercharger I purchased off Amazon for like $379.95, and it's belt driven. Made a reworked an air conditioning / alternator bracket, factory bracket, like morphed it onto the Scout 152 engine. Added our CPT aluminum pulley setup to it onto the water pump, and got the belt driven going. A Scout 2 radiator hose was the upper hose going from the supercharger to the Sniper throttle body. And I'll tell you, that thing makes all the difference in the world. I went from doing, when I leave hop on the highway, top speed used to be like 39 miles an hour. And then when I added the Sniper, it went up to 42. When I put the supercharger on, I was doing, I think, like 62, 63 miles an hour at the top of the hill, and I had to back off because it was pinging. So, and that was with 87 octane. Since then, I've been starting to put like 89 or even premium in it. I just had it at King of the Hammers week before last. And I honestly, I took that and I took Hideous, and I had more fun with that little supercharged Scout 80 than I did with Hideous out there.
Isn't that the way? Yeah.
Oh man, it was just so much fun to rip that thing around. It was just awesome in the whoops. Even Corey has had a hard time keeping up with me in the whoops because that Scout's so light, and it's punchy with the supercharger for that little 152. It's just amazing. I just laugh because it has zero tuning. I just literally just bolted the supercharger, put the sniper on. I've changed nothing, and it's just like it works. And
just roll the dice, man. See what happens.
I just know to back off, but it just doesn't make sense.
That's like the true nature of hot rodding. Like you're getting back to the roots of it all. Like that's what they were doing in the 50s and
and that's
40s. It's like, hey, this is what we have for an engine. We're just gonna do whatever we can to make this thing more of what it is.
Well, what's funny, so I have a rebuilt 196, been sitting in my other building for probably 2-3 years now. And I just like, this thing's got I have nothing to lose 152 in it. It's like, it's just an old turd engine. And it's like, okay, what do I got to lose? Let's throw the supercharger on it. And I've just been working the snot out of it, especially at the Hammers, man. That was its worst. I mean, that was its longest flogging since supercharging it, and it held up like a champ. And I mean, it never got hot or anything. We rock crawled it a little bit, and oh man, it was just so much fun. I had so much fun in that thing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So let's kind of transition. Tell us a little bit about the current rig, which is right behind you. Hideous. Tell us a little bit about that and kind of the specs and build ideas and stuff like that went into that.
So Hideous was inspired by your guys' builds from Christian's Jeep and your Scout, and after watching those things in action and stuff, and just being on UA those first couple years, it's like, okay, need to go from spring over and stockish axle to like lower and wider. And so with Hideous, it was like found the perfect truck body to use, and with all our components we have with CPT, we built a Scout chassis underneath it, 392 V8, sniper fuel injection, NV4500 with our CPT conversion kit in it, and then Atlas transfer case, Ultimate Dana 60s, because that's like what your Scout, both your Jeep and your Scout had. I'm like, oh, if those guys are running around with Ultimate 60, I got to get Ultimate 60s for this thing. And so 538s, ARBs, and 40-inch Milestar tires. They've been great. And, got custom Atlas springs with Orbit eyes on it, and Skyjacker ADX 2.0 shocks on it to round it off. That's pretty much the bulk of the build. And then pretty much it's been wheeling-wise, I've had just so much fun wheeling it. It's maybe not the most flexiest thing out there, but it just climbs well, and it's always done, I think, really well. And just the way the engine is able to torque down low, I'm just going to go with the same recipe on the White Scout. So I actually went from spring over to spring under with, same spring, same shocks, same axles, same transmission. So same Atlas transfer case, like almost the whole recipe to a T is like going underneath there. Just a little bit more lift I'm designing into it with the brackets and everything. The suspension hangers are all a little bit lower below the frame. I'm just trying to fit 40s on Hideous was easy because it was easy to chop out and do the welding and make it look all Frankensteinish or however, like how your Scout is, Trent. But on White Scout, I want it, really finished and refined.
Sure.
And so I don't know if it's going to fit 40-inch Milestars, but it's going to definitely get at least a 38, I'm hoping. Definitely no less than 37. It's got 35s on it right now with plenty of room. But I need to take the springs apart, flex it out. I need to do some more chopping in the front underneath, turning the axles and stuff. I'm down to that fine-tuning, chopping kind of stuff. I'm trying to get the body all done and off to paint before I go to EJS, so it's not just sitting here for another week and a half getting nothing done to it.
Gotcha,
Nice.
gotcha. So let's we talk a little bit about White Scout, and you had that on UA 2019,
19 and 20.
and then 20. We had a little bit of an incident, did we not?
Yes, we did. 20 was a rough year. 20 day one of UA. So I had a great 2019. Like, I had a few little problems with it, but ultimately for driving that thing, 3,000 miles to Alaska, wheeling at 1,500 miles during the week, driving at 1,500 miles during the week during UA. Obviously, you guys walked out and saw me rebuilding the front end behind the parking lot before we drove 3,000 miles home. But it was a great trip. It was fun. But then that next UA, day one, the fuel pump problem happened. And we fought it that whole week. And then at the very end, laid the thing on its side. And I haven't driven it since. It just got kind of stowed away. So it just was finally time to, not just fix the thing, but I did say I would return this thing back to UA one day, and that's what I'm going to do. So, I have a deadline.
Yeah, it wasn't just on your side though. I mean, it did quite a bit of damage. I mean, it tore up the windshield frame and the door. And
I think the rooftop tent saved it, right? It kind of kept it from going all the way over.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it. I'm not going to blame the tent for obviously flipping me, but that extra couple 100 pounds that I never had up there before for 18 years of driving that thing, and all of a sudden I tossed 200 pounds at. Well, I remember being parked next to the Quigley van, next to Tiger and Renee's van, and just going, "This thing's as freaking tall as this van. I'm in trouble if things go sideways or something happens." And it was just ended up being so tippy.
And you had gone up to bigger tires that year too, because you were on 35s the year before, and then you stepped up to what, 37s or 38s?
37s, yeah. But I've wheeled it with 37s in the past, so it wasn't the first time it's had 30. I used to wheel it with 37s, and then I daily drove it with 35s because I used to tow with it. I did everything with that Scout. That was my daily driver, wheeler, hauled the travel trailer, the car trailer. It did it all. So it just kind of, when I got my travel all, that thing kind of got retired from towing, and just more, leisurely stuff. But then I just kept wrecking it. So it hasn't been.
So this is the redemption tour this year.
It is a redemption tour,
back.
yeah. I'm expecting a few scuffs, but I'm going to really, I can be a bull in a china shop with hideous behind me. Obviously, you guys have seen me wheel. So I can't do that with this Scout behind me. I really don't want to be. I'm going to really be needing some some really good spotting, and probably have to be a lot more patient going through obstacles and just make sure, because I don't plan on hardcore wheeling this thing after this trip, honestly. Like, I want to use it more for like overlanding and just more lighter duty stuff, but something that will have a back seat in it so we can fit more than just one passenger with me if we want to go.
Lower impact aerobics. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, exactly. So just a little bit a different vehicle for
Dave is also working on something.
We are. Yep.
What's your boy doing over there in the corner of the shop?
Well, he's been rebuilding currently some parts for Cheap Scout, as we call it, and it's
international now apparently.
International now. It keeps changing by the day. Apparently, the name. Dumpster diver.
Cheap Scout, was that the one you had in Moab this past year?
No. That's Zade's Monstera.
Oh, okay.
We call it them. It's a Terra, so we call it a Monstera because when he first built it, the thing was just like hugely lifted and stuff. It was a monster. So its name's always been Monstera. Cheap Scout is just some 73, I think, Scout 2 half cap, green, got 4x4, rusted like it, everything about it, 258 6. I don't know the rest of it. It's just, typical Scout. It just looks perfect to turn it into a cheap project. I picked it up for a reasonable price. And what we're going to do is we've got all the old parts from White Scout. So I've got, actually, this thing's a whole new frame, chassis, springs, everything. So the old chassis is just sitting outside. It's already built. Got the Dana 60 in the back, 44 front. It's got air lockers. we're going to throw some Skyjacker ADX 2.0 shocks on it, throw some Milestar tires on it, and roll that thing underneath Jeep Scout. Zaid's been rebuilding T19 wide ratio for it. It's got a 258 6-cylinder. Holly has sent us a Sniper fuel injection for it. They've also sent me one for White Scout too. So we'll be testing out a bunch of their stuff. So we're going to be putting Holly Sniper on the 258 6, and then in front of a T19 wide, the old Jeep Dana 300 out of White Scout, because I got an Atlas in here now, and that'll be going to the 44 and 60 combo 513 gears, and I think one's an ARB and one end's got like a Yukon locker in it.
We're definitely being cheap. We're being cheap. I had Corey's neighbor send us a used transmission bearing.
Well, and so Zaid, it sounds like you're getting a bunch of leftover parts, the stuff that's just falling off the back of the White Scout or whatever. It's getting cobbled up and used in yours, right?
Yeah, the transmission was a donated rusty T19, and then I needed an adapter for it to adapt the T19 to the G300, so I traded another vendor another transmission for the adapter. So I calculated the cost. We only have about $6 into the T19. And then the Dana 300 just needed one bearing, which was free. I found that in the miscellaneous bin. So I'm going to call that free, essentially.
That works. Dad probably didn't even know he had it anymore.
The old roll cage out of White Scout is going to be put into this cheap Scout. The old the seats are going to go in there because I've ordered brand new PRP seats for White Scout. It's just like there's so many new parts going into this thing, and all the old parts are like, here, man, you're going to need this for
Zaid's
Cheap
just
Scout.
like, I got
an old dash for you.
I'll grab that.
Oh yeah. Like I said, I plucked the old wiring harness out of this thing very carefully, and it'll be perfect for Cheap Scout. I was really gentle taking it out. We'll be able to totally reuse it in Cheap Scout. Like I said, everything will just be reused parts or donated. And like I said, he's on a tight budget on there, and we're just kind of like, it's like showing people, hey, you can still go out there. I know it's a lot of like some of it primo parts still, but you can still slap something together with parts, and we're going to go see what kind of an adventure we can have with it wherever you happen to take us this year.
And there's always something incredibly satisfying and rewarding about like using that old part you've had on the shelf for like 20 years. There's that funny viral video or internet video that goes around, like, the dad and the son are working and they're trying to level a bed. He's like, I've got a block of wood I've been saving for 30 years. And all excited, runs to the basement and gets it. It's like, that's when you're putting these vehicles together with stuff. Oh yeah, I got that transmission back there that I've been sitting on for 40 years.
Absolutely.
Just seeing it get put to use. Getting out there,
it's nice
becoming a living, moving being again.
Yeah.
I even found a few synchros that were in good condition. We ended up using those.
That's the crazy thing about where you guys are at with IH Parts. When we were building the S120 at Woods Off-Road, Jeff, what did they make those trucks? 2 years, 56 and 57?
Yeah,
and
there's not even 2 years.
Yeah, a year and a half. There's like we were pulling apart the steering column, and the turn signal assembly inside like literally crumpled. And Jeff's like, I think I got one of those. And a box shows up, and there's a pristine OEM, still in the box. So like, we didn't wind up using it. I gave it back to you for someone who was going to really restore one of those things. But it's amazing what you've got.
Your S120 project on that whole switch inspired me to dig deeper, and I actually found a replacement and brand new, somebody's repopping them, replacement switch for those things, and now we offer and sell them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, maybe I'll put directionals in that thing then.
Yeah, let me know.
You not only have so much vehicle parts laying around, you're a collector. Anything IH. That was one of the most entertaining things about visiting you in the IH Parts America R&D facility there is, you've got an IH fridge. If they made IH beer, it would be in your IH fridge. Talk about some of the other like collectible stuff you've scored and found over the years.
Oh man, so like yeah, lots of IH fridges, freezers. I don't know what else cool do we have that's IH around here. I mean, I've got trucks dating as back as like 26. So coming on 9, I got the one truck here is 99 years old, basically, at this point, the 6-speed special.
But you got like a little bulldozer out there, and you've got tractors galore. And
yeah, I got a skid steer, IH skid steer. I've got those Cub Cadet tractors with rototiller attachment. I do Norma's garden with it just once a year. So just so I can frustrate myself and put the belt back on 6 times on a small little garden.
What's the most interesting IH find you've stumbled across? That what's your one treasure?
My one, I think what I treasure quite a bit is FC 520, and that's the 20th Scout to roll off the assembly line. I have that at my friend's shop in Ohio, Super Scout Specialist. He's got it in his museum there in Eden, Ohio. And so it's cool that I don't have a place for like people to see that vehicle unless it was outside, and I don't want to leave it outside. So he's got an indoor place, and IH people get to check it out. Like I said, it's 20th Scout to roll off the assembly line. It's a turd if you looked at it that way because it's real rusty and stuff. But hey, it fires right up, it runs, it drives, and it's really as far as I know, it's the oldest Scout, original Scout that still runs and drives in existence. There's the number 1's out there, but it's been fully restored, and my brother's got number 21, and he's restored his. But so as far as I know, this is the oldest unrestored Scout 80 still out there. Wow!
So you and your brother own sequential Scout 80s?
Yeah, he's got number FC 521. I beat him by a digit. I got FC 520.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. So kind of moving to Unreal Adventure, and Unreal Adventure presented by Skyjacker Suspension, I should add. Jeff, what motivated you to get involved with UA in the first place?
Just being a fan of the event through the magazine, through four-wheel and off-road. Was it back Peterson's four-wheel and off-road back then? That's where the event was hosted on, and just being an avid magazine reader, and every year I'd read about it. And then when things started to go onto the internet, I'd watch it, be able to see some of the stuff and the videos you guys would post, and just like, man, I want to go. And one year I made the Dirty Dozen. I think it was in 2015 I made Dirty Dozen with White Scout. And it was myself that year as a Scout and Matt Boken and his Scout. And Matt Boken ended up making it in. And
great dude.
I didn't make it that year. And I was like, that's all right. And I later saw Rick Payway at, I think, a Top Truck Challenge or something the year after. And that was the first time I'd met Rick. And anyways, it was all cool. Like I said, that was a time in life I had available. I could have gone had I got chosen. I really wanted to, but then it didn't happen. And I was so busy developing the business back then anyways. It's kind of a good thing I didn't go, because I don't think really that Scout then was as ready as it was. Like by the time, 19, I totally had already rewired it and stuff and was getting it ready to put back on the road, because I hadn't been driving it much or wheeling for quite a few years there. I just was, maybe was lucky for quite a few years, even though the Rubicon's down the road or Ford Ice, I was lucky to go on a snow run once a year. But I had my nose at the grindstone, just developing the business. It was here at this shop for about 5-6 years, and then we moved it into town back in, I think, 2016. And, it's been out there flourishing ever since.
That's awesome.
That's where we met. I think I was the editor of Four Wheeler Magazine, and you sponsored Top Truck Challenge one year. We had 2 internationals in the event that year, if I'm remembering right. Yeah,
2 or 3. I still have the poster somewhere. But
I mean, you were having a ball. I remember you just like running around with your camera.
Yeah. So anyways,
getting poison oak like all of us.
Oh yeah, that was great. But anyways, being a fan of the event, getting back to UA, and in 2019 when when, all of a sudden it's like you guys are building the Scout. I don't know how we connected, whether you called me, I called you. I don't remember.
I think Trent was looking for floor pans, maybe.
I don't. Quite possibly.
Yeah, I just, I remember talking to you and going, hey, we're building the Scout and wondering if you're interested in being a sponsor. And I remember saying, yeah, only if I get to go, because that's been a dream of mine, was always to go on UA. And you're like, well, of course you can go. But so I was like sold, and we made it happen. And then, once you got me on your shoe, I'm like, some bubble gum, you can't get rid of me. So I'm just.
And then he got bit by the bug badly.
Oh yeah, I love UA. It's such a great event. I mean, you guys take us to a different part of the country every year. We experience wheeling and history and just seeing, like I said, I just love the event overall. I've just always been a fan of it. We're blessed to have a great business. We can, go off and do these things and then at the same time, take our products through the most hardest trails of the country and just, prove what we're doing and what we offer is as best as can be. And I don't know, like I said, it's just can't say enough about, like I said, I'm so excited to see where you take us this year. I've got my guests, and stuff, and people ask, I'm like, well, my guess is, due to the history of not going, here, it's like a, tabulation where it's like you're following this graph of all the different places we've been. Like, I'm going to guess here because it's, we've haven't gone to this sector of the country in quite a few years. So, it's a part of the adventure, though, is like trying to figure it all out. And then when the day we finally do find out, or finally the day it's like, hey, dude, I got some other priority stuff coming. I need to know where we're going at this point because I got to start planning, So sometimes we have to ask to find out. But for the most part, I just,
as it draws closer, we'll give you a little more, more breadcrumbs to follow. But it really does take a certain kind of personality and temperament and openness to really take to this event. And I remember that first year in 2019, you came in and you just like slid right in like you'd been, part of the thing forever. We have no drama, no problems. You were dialed. You drove your junk, from California to Alaska. And it's like sometimes we have some people who need a little extra attention, and that's fine. But you were just solid and, self-sufficient, helpful to people who needed it. And I was like, all right, this guy, because, when you're bringing someone new into the event, especially as a sponsor, there's always that worry, like, are they going to leave with a good taste in their mouth from this whole thing? And man, so you were like a duck to water, man.
I know, but then 2020 was a complete opposite. And like you said, it was like, hey, I need another tow. I'm like, Scout's done again. And, if it was like clockwork every day, that thing from like mile 25 to 27, I'd watch that fuel pressure gauge. And really, I didn't get to enjoy that trip at all because my eye was on that fuel pressure gauge, not on, the actual scenery and the trail, because it just kept giving us problems. And here's the funny part. So we had our eye suspicions of what was wrong. Like, oh, we think, flaking in the fuel tank was clogging the inlet, or, the fuel pump, my spare fuel pump I stuck on was higher pressure. Chris Durham pointed out I put a higher pressure pump, and maybe that was causing it. So when I was tearing White Scout apart, and I had stripped every fuel line off of it, but this one little section I just hadn't taken off yet. And Zaid's walking by, and he goes, hey, did you see that? And of course, nowadays I got to put glasses on to see stuff up close. I'm like, what? He goes, check that out. And I looked, and right between the body mount and the frame, it had come down hard and pinched the metal fuel line. And I'm positive at this point that was our problem. I think I came down hard earlier that day, that first day of wheeling on an obstacle, just came down, banged, and it like pinched that fuel line. And after so much time, it started vapor locking. And that first fuel pump probably was nothing wrong. I think we just vapor locked it because it was just like, trying to get it past that pinch in that metal line. So that's what caused our melee, on 2020. But I hope I'm pretty sure, 21, we redeemed ourselves with this guy behind me here. And,
oh yeah.
And, ever since then, this thing's been a pretty solid rig anymore. I have a blast just wheeling it. Still fighting fuel pump relay issues. Believe it or not, thought I fixed it after UA this last year. I got a whole brand new 75 amp relay setup sitting on the fender. I got to wire that in next, and but otherwise, just have been having a blast with like you said, using a recipe I learned from you guys, which is, just low, wide, spring under. It's just simple and it works great.
There you go. So you've already touched on several things, but if you had to pick one thing, and this is a question for each of you actually, if you had to pick one thing about UA, what is your favorite part? Like just in general, is it the not knowing? Is it the, what is your favorite part of UA?
What's your favorite part?
There's always a constant question on where we're going. So I think it keeps us all on our toes. Make sure we all get up, and because we have no idea what we're going to do. We could be driving down a volcano or cruising down the highway. Who knows?
It's definitely a hard question because there's so much cool things about this event. But I think ultimately, for me, the favorite part is just being able to see a different part of the country and just being able for a week, just concentrate on, hey, look around you. This is you may never drive these roads ever again. Check out this part of the country you may never see again. And I just like that. I mean, the wheeling's awesome. The adventure part, like not knowing where we're going, is awesome. But just seeing just the different parts of this country. God, the wheeling was so rad in the Southwest. I'd never wheeled, Arizona and New Mexico and stuff. And I've wheeled Colorado, but not that part of Colorado. And that was just some epic wheeling this year. But the scenery was also obviously epic, especially those last couple days. It just got more epic as the trip went on. And, it's just the experience. It's just unreal.
Yeah, well, we got a pretty big solid from Mother Nature this year. I mean, it was kind of like hitting the easy button. But yeah, and it's funny you say that in terms of like the not knowing. Both of you kind of mentioned that. We've had a lot of pushback about that over the years, to the point that it's like, well, is it really that necessary? And to me, it's really kind of a key element to the event. It's like it's just you know where you're going to start, where you're going to end, and nothing about what's happening in the middle. And for somebody such as yourself, Jeff, you obviously as a business owner, most business owners by default are kind of like type A and kind of need to be in charge or whatever. Some people are better about shutting that off than others. And so we've gotten quite a bit of pushback over the years off and on from people that have a hard time turning that off. And it's like, but you get the guys that do it, and then it's like they're successful in doing it, and then they're like, this was so cool, and
yeah. No, please don't ever change that.
Yeah,
No.
To me that I've always been kind of a hard no on, do we? Because it really does. It creates a lot of logistical issues, not just for us. I mean, it does for us, but it also does for you, and we get that. And so to
me, it's like French fries without the salt. I mean, I think the mystery element is a key ingredient in allowing people to kind of like kick back and not. You don't have that anticipation of, I know I'm gonna do this trail later, and I'm gonna, perseverate over it or worry about it, or so you're more in the moment because you're just where you are. You got to enjoy it, and you just, as long as you keep that vehicle in front of you in sight, and make sure you're not blowing away from the guy behind you. It's just there's nothing to do but enjoy the trip.
I'll tell you, that last day of UA this year was a ball in this thing. I had so much fun because I was behind Tiger and Renee, and we were stacking a lot of rocks. And Tiger had a couple little problems. I can remember the ram going out and stuff. But for me, it was like I was out of the vehicle for a lot of the day, actually. And it was just like helping Tiger. He'd get 100 yards up the trail. I'd run back down, hop in this thing. I'd only need to be in this thing for 5 minutes. Burp, burp, burp. I'd catch up to Tiger, park it, get out, and then just help stack rocks and hang out. And it was just so much fun. It was epic wheeling, and it was relaxed. Like, it wasn't, because this thing gets sweaty hot in there, and it was a decent day. But it just overall, between the epic of the wheeling and not having to work hard to do it, it was just, I don't know, like I said, man, that was just so much fun.
That last day was a good pace. For as crazy as that trail was, and as bad as things could have gone, and Trent and I, like Trent had said, I think during the event, he didn't get a chance to pre-run it this year, and it had been decades since either of us had been on that trail. So we didn't know if we were going to blow right through it or if we were going to be there till yesterday. It just wound up kind of coming together, but that's also due in large part to the crew we had and the people who were on it, and like their abilities and sensibilities, and it's just a good. Yeah, I agree. That was one of my favorite days from this past year's event.
Yeah, well, so you already kind of answered the question, the next question, Jeff, which is what was your favorite part of this year's UA? So how about you, Zaid? What was your favorite part of this year's UA?
Probably when we broke down and we were stuck with Vern.
Which time?
In the back. It was that back road section.
And he's talking with Corey, by the way, not when he was broke down with me.
You should
when he was
clarify
broke down with Corey.
You talking about that Black Hills back? Yeah, the Black Hills Backcountry Byway.
Yeah, you guys had stopped at some sort of some viewing center, and we missed that. So we were about 10 miles behind, and Corey was just fully floored in that Scout on that sketchy road. And I thought we were going to fly off the mountain. I mean, I thought that was just, yeah. So I made him slow down.
I'm kind of glad he didn't either.
So that was probably the best part. It was pretty scary.
Yeah, because that was a sketch. There were some parts in that where we're switchbacking and stuff like that. This is sketchy.
I remember that.
No guardrail,
And Corey said he was good at driving fast, so that's all I was. I hadn't really been in a car with this guy ever in my life besides this week. So going, he was probably going 80 or 90 miles an hour in this Scout, and in the passenger seat, it feels like you're riding on nothing. There's nothing to hold on to or anything. It's just Corey.
Barely any floor under your feet.
Like Corey's like on his phone on Instagram or something while he's driving 100. Or like his ECM's throwing 800 codes and he's trying to tune it while we're going 100.
None of which we condone, by the way.
None of which we condone. Not with our blessing by any stretch of the imagination. So I could tell you that one of my favorite moments during UA is that, and it actually made the video when you were talking about that we were in Truth or Consequences. And you're talking about the air fresheners, and you're like, it was like a supernova air freshener, and the fact that you're like, how they managed to harness the smell of the galaxy.
It's true though.
In an air freshener, it was amazing. I was there. I was off to the side, and I was laughing hysterically while you were talking about that. I'm so glad it made the video because that was just hilarious, dude.
There's a funny part from the video too that I'm totally glad made it. So I've got my little fire extinguisher mount in Hideous, and when we got to Truth and Consequences, I remember opening my door, and the little knob for that release rolled out of the door, and I'm like, oh. I picked it up and I screwed it back on. Well, I guess during that day of wheeling, I came back, and sure enough, it did the same thing. I opened the door and it rolled out, but I didn't see it this time. So, the next day I'm like, oh, I lost my knob, Anyways, moved on with the trip. Totally forgotten about it. A month or two goes by, you guys put the video out, and there it is. Zaid's got the knob in his hand, and I'm just like, no way. And finally, guess what? Corey gave it back to me the other day when we were at KOA. So I got my knob back, all thanks to your video. I'm glad you put that part in the video. Otherwise, I never would have my knob back.
You can thank Ryan Foss for that one.
I thought it was funny. I'm like, yeah, that's my knob.
That's hilarious. So, All right. Well, I know Christian and I have a pretty good idea what the answer to this next question is going to be. But are you guys going to be back for 25?
Of course.
All right.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Not only are we coming back, we're coming back with 2 different rigs. So
There you go.
you know,
Very
like
cool.
you said, return of White Scout and bringing in Cheap Scout. So that's our plan. So year of the 2 Scouts, we'll have 2 Scout 2s this year, and switching it up. Like I said, Hideous will we'll just have to. Of course, Hideous, in case something happens, this thing doesn't get done. It's game on for Hideous. Cheap Scout will get done, and it's already got all the parts are
Well,
here.
we
for
don't
that.
know that.
This thing, I got a deadline on this behind me, and I hate deadlines. I'd really rather relax and do a build and just, take my time.
Sometimes
and there's,
you need them.
yeah, there's stuff, like I said, I'd redo right now on this thing because I want it perfect, and it's not perfect, but it's good enough. And I'm talking like the body work and stuff I've done. It's just I'm being too anal over. I'm my worst critic sometimes when it comes to stuff. I'm like, well, this is 1/4 inch off this side to that side. Nobody's going to really tell unless I'm totally pointing out all the flaws I did on this thing, But ultimately, I'm pretty. What's that?
You're just going to rub it up against rocks. So
It is, like I said, I'm expecting certain things. I already talked to my painter. I'm like, I go, which paint would you put on this? Because I'm going to mess it up. So we need to be able to make it, easily repairable. And he's like, oh, well, if that's the case, we're going to use, I forgot what he said, but that's like the fender flare extensions I did on it. It's not like it's part of the frame bumper structure. It's still part of the body. But at least I'll be able, if I expect to scuff and get into stuff with them, and I just, hey, if I can just sand it and paint it. Because like I said, after this it's one trip. Otherwise, Hideous is what it is. Because in 20, we're thinking so far out with the UA, it's like, not only are we returning for 25, we're returning for 26 too. Because, I really still in the back of my mind want to do, inspired by another UA build, of your guys' with the double-ended Jeep that Dave Chappelle had recently acquired. I still want to do a double-ended Scout, like an 8800 double-ended Scout. So
You've got plenty of them in your backyard to
I
choose
do,
from.
yeah.
Dave, you're shaking your head. You're not on board with this?
4-door.
Well, if you
4-door
take
line.
both front ends, Jeff, Zay gets both rear ends.
There you go. Okay, so we have to we get so far into the trail, got to throw it in reverse. He can take over, go in the other direction. It would work out so rad. 4-wheel steer on it.
Oh man.
Oh boy. All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see. All right, moving on because we're over 45 minutes in at this point. And this is another question for each of you. What is a good piece of advice that you would give somebody that wants to come on UA?
Well, I guess on my best Sam Gillis voice, you've got too much stuff. So some guys bring way too much stuff, and it ends up bogging them down the whole week, having just everything under the sun. It's like, listen, we're going to be going to parts stores all week long, Walmarts. Every year I've tried to learn to actually slim down on what I bring, because it's just like, all right, I've brought this item every year for the past 3-4 years and I've never used it. It's time to just leave it home, and usually 3 other guys have the damn thing anyways, why bring it and stuff.
Well, and you did, I should say, and I'll plug it here. Jeff did a absolutely fantastic, what to pack for UA video. That was a really good one, and it doesn't just apply to UA, but it's just, any longer trip. You did a really in-depth, you basically walked through all of your bags and what you're taking, what you're
Here's
not.
where we say we'll put a link in the description.
Yeah, we'll put a link in the
not only that, we may come back and revisit that video, because that was the cut down version to make it, X amount long. I probably sat there and spoke for like an hour going through, much longer than what we recorded for. We may come back and do an uncut version and just put there was just so many other little details of little things that just got cut out just to try to keep, the video.
Well, plus for me, I know what I pack for UA changes slightly or majorly depending on what vehicle I'm bringing.
Yeah.
So I know in years past, I've brought a tent cot. I've brought just a tent. I brought only a sleeping bag. I brought different camping gear. I brought only MREs. I brought, camp cookware, and then the spare parts. Obviously you're going to pack what you think you'll need for that vehicle, tools, spare supplies, whatever the weak points are. So yeah, I think there's validity in reshooting, a longer one for when you get White Scout and Cheap Scout done.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. Well, what's your thought on what's the one advice you'd give a UA-er, maybe a co-driver UA-er?
Probably bring bug spray.
So you've had a rough run with the stinging insects the last couple of years, haven't you, bud?
Yeah.
Yes, he has.
Bring bug spray. Okay. All right. So, another news, you recently bought a flat fender, much like the one behind me right here.
Yeah, it's the Jeep thing worming its way into your brain?
It's called the Green Hornet. You guys inspired me for, there's that, it's called the Red Devil Run or something like that. Go Devil Run. And that looks something like just I'd have fun at.
Dude.
And it's just something to set a goal. Like, one day I wouldn't mind going to that, getting some old IH farmer clothes on or whatever, but, putting my straw hat on and grabbing a very old Coleman.
But you bought an illegal Willys. You don't have a Go Devil in it.
Oh, no, I don't. It actually has a Buick V6. This wasn't the Jeep I was looking for, but at the same time, it was owned by Bill Monahan, who did a lot of transmissions. He owned Sierra Transmissions here locally, did a lot of transmission rebuilds for me and for Parts Mike. It was Mike Monahan's brother. It belonged to a guy named Dick. Can't remember Dick's last name. But what's cool about it, it's just so much local history with the Jeep. A lot of little dash plaques on it going over Fordyce for Sierra Trek from like the late 70s to early 80s. And same thing with Rubicon going on a lot of the Jeep Jamborees and stuff. So the history of it, it was owned by Bill, been over two of my favorite trails, clean title. It's like, I'll just, the fact that it's got the V6, I'm okay with it.
The photos you sent me are rad. And that Buick 225 is honestly one of my all-time favorite off-road engines.
That's a cool motor.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Totally.
So no, I plan with Yeah, no, it won't pass that. I'd probably have to get something else. Or, and I've talked to some guys about possibly trading, because the tranny and transfer case are locked up in it because it's been outside and exposed. So, I don't know. I may just say I get the motor fired up, so it's good. It'd be easy enough to trade it to somebody that got the proper 4-cylinder. But I was really trying to buy one that was already all original together. I don't have time to build one. That's why it went from being, Bill's old yard art to now my yard art outside. I'll get to it eventually, or maybe a better Jeep comes along and I decide to just pick it up. But honestly,
with all the lifts and stuff you have, and this is just my stupid weird brain. Just you could totally make your Buick with an SM420 and a Spicer 18, and then build some mounts like where they're pinned to the frame with like 4 different mounts. Disconnect those, a quick fuel disconnect. You just raise the Jeep up, leave the drivetrain sitting there, and then stick the Go Devil in. Same mounts, and just there we go. Now I'm run legal.
There you go. Totally. Oh, it's totally doable. It just takes time.
Well, this one behind me has actually been on every single Go Devil run so far. So
that's pretty cool. Is that your newest acquisition, or that's the one you've had for a while?
No, it's not the newest acquisition. This is the one I've had for a while. So the newest acquisition is a slack grill, which I had to have. So I didn't need it. I didn't want it. I had to have it. So it's an MB.
We don't need them all. That's why, all the ones I've got out in the yard behind me, like what Christian was saying earlier, it's like I didn't need any of them, but there they are.
I've actually got it. I've actually got it stashed at a friend's house right now because I don't have room for it. And I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do with that thing.
I hear you. I hear you.
So this next one is a Christian question, which is electric scouts. I know you went to the unveiling and all that stuff, and I think you even
Yeah.
said that you put a deposit down on 2 different models and everything.
Yeah.
And do you see that program really translating to your business down the road, or are you just?
I do.
You do.
I do.
Okay.
The way I see it, we're going to have a whole new influx of customers coming into our brand who were not previously aware of it. So they're going to, we have this new modern vehicle. Of course, it's front and center, and they're going to be, it's EV, it's hybrid, not hybrid, but it's got they have a harvester edition, as they call it, which has basically a generator to keep it going. I don't want to get too technical because I may misspeak about how it's being built, but the 2 I ordered, a Scout Terra and a Traveler, I ordered one of each. I think Zaid ordered one as well. Technically, we've ordered 3 between the 2 of us. But yeah, pretty cool. Anyway, it's going to bring in a lot of new people. They're going to see this new Scout, and then as they look into it, and they're going to be like, oh, well, it's based off of an old Scout. Well, I got to have an old Scout to match my new Scout. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen,
Okay.
and we're going to have a lot new customer base coming in, and people with let's face it, with a lot of money who like I said, if they can afford this brand new EV Scout, it should be pretty. They're proposing around a $50,000 to $60,000 price point for it currently.
That's not bad.
We'll see. Let's hope it sticks to that. I know things are changing on the horizon between like EV credits and stuff like that, but I'm still, I don't know. Like you said, I'm hopeful. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe they come out with an ICE version. I don't know. It's a body on frame. It's got a solid rear axle with coilovers. It's got independent suspension up front with coilovers. It's like it's built to be like converted and utilized in an ICE conversion. It was totally cool seeing them and being at the reveal. We're so honored to be able to be there and experience that. Because when they came out, for the unveiling, it's like immediately I was like, I had no idea that morning I was going to be ordering my first new Scout ever. It's like we had this unveiling, like, you can order one right now. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, oh my God, I get out my cell phone and boom, man. I was like, I just put my deposit down on one of each, because I just see it's a good thing to get into one, to be on top of it and see if there's any accessories we can come out with or support the brand.
That was my next question, is in addition to exposure, to the brand, to, people who weren't already aware of internationals, like, do you think you would be developing products for these new electric EV ones?
Well, we keep thinking we are, but then Scout Motors turns around and posts up they already got that accessory already handled. So it's like they're not leaving a whole lot of a whole lot of things for us to design. But it's so awesome to see them doing such an excellent job and really just thinking this thing out, and just so many different angles that they're coming at. It's like I think at one post, like they put a mount already built into the dash for like your cell phone and accessories to go. And I'm like, oh, I hope you guys thought to put plugins, into that dash so you don't have these cords hanging down. And then later on that next day, I'm like, why did I even think to ask that? Of course they already knew, and sure enough, it was already in their design to have those plugs. They're just, they're so many little details. I think they're doing a good job. We'll see. I just saw a thing this morning earlier today where he was on Jay Leno's show, Jay Leno's Garage, and they were driving him around and just talking about him and the plans and the plant that they're building, and how many U.S. jobs that this new plant's bringing in, and how a lot of the products going into the Scout is going to be based here in the manufactured here in the United States, and within like a couple hundred miles of, I think it's in South Carolina, I want to say.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, we are getting really close to the hour mark, so just kind of wanted to wrap this up. Do you guys have any questions for Christian or I?
Well,
I already know what one of them is going to be.
Except for where we're going for 25.
Exactly.
I don't want to know. Like I said, that's part of the adventure.
What's your guess? What's
my guess? My guess would be I'm thinking we're probably going to head to the Pacific Northwest. because we haven't gone that way in quite a while. And my second guess is middle northern part of the country. So like those two areas, like, is what I'm thinking one of those two areas, just because, you know, we've been to Alaska. I know you were in Maine, I think before Alaska. So
18 we did Maine.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, I'm going back to 18 basically on where we've been, because I think in 17, weren't you in Arizona in 17?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we've just returned back to Arizona area in 24. So I'm like, okay, well, these
Spent
other
a lot
areas
of time in
haven't
the
been.
Southeast recently, and
Yeah, we've spent a lot of time in the Southeast. We've been across the country. So my guess is, like I said, middle, you know, Northwest. I don't know. I mean, I'd be tickled pink if it was just down the road here at Fordyce, although I wheel that trail all the time. It doesn't fit my wanting to see a different part of the country. But it would be cool to, like, do, you know, host something if that were the case. But anyways, I'm guessing Pacific Northwest.
No, we've never been to Hawaii.
And we've never been to Hawaii, but I don't know, man. That seems like a lot of trouble, a lot of time. Like, I would have to have this white sky. You'd have to move my deadline up to be done by, like,
The all Amphicar edition.
Well, and
no doubt.
I'll also just throw this out there. We've never been to Mexico either.
We've never been to Mexico, huh?
Never been to Mexico. So, just saying.
I've never been, and I've never been to Mexico or Zaid. So
Is that for legal reasons or?
no, it just, you know, I've been to third world countries, just not Mexico, I guess you could say. But
Gotcha.
I don't know. That'd be interesting, but you're right. We have not been to Mexico, but I wouldn't think we'd take this internationally, because then wouldn't everybody have to have a passport?
Yeah. Well,
Which is not a huge
get it.
deal. Well, yeah, I guess we had to when we went to Alaska. We all had to
Make
get
happen.
to Canada. Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, anyways, that's my guess.
So are you
Well,
telling us
yeah.
to get passports or?
Yeah, I'm good. I got my
mean,
passport.
Having a passport is not a bad thing in general. I'm just saying.
No.
I'm not saying you're necessarily going to need it for this year, but you might, and then you never know. You know, you never know. So, you know, having a passport is not a bad thing. So, just saying. But
that would
both
be
of those are
interesting.
solid guesses. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. But all right. So, any like I said, any other questions for Christian and I or anything like that? Either one of you?
Well, think we'll ever see, like, the ultimate international scout return to UA?
Oh yeah. Oh, totally. Oh yeah.
Okay.
For sure. For
Love
sure.
to see
yeah.
that back on there.
Yeah. Now the plan, we have a plan for this year, and it's not going to be like a full build. I mean, I think we want to get back to those eventually, but
Yeah.
the plan is to kind of rehash a rig. I'm not sure I'm ready to talk about it yet, but one that has been on several different UAs, but it's also been gone for a lot of years, and so that's still around, let's just say. So we're gonna that's kind of the plan for this year, and then but I mean, and always, you know, the scout's gonna be in Moab and all that stuff. So that's gonna continue on. So yeah.
I think his Scout and my S120 and my CJ6 are lifers. We'd be hard pressed to get rid of any of those.
That would be rad to have, like, you know, the ultimate international scout, have the Hemi National, like, you know, total, like, reunion or something, like, one year. Anyways, like the Harvester year or something like that. Heinous Harvesters. Let's get all the heinous looking Harvesters all together one year for a run.
Right on.
But
Well, cool. Well, I'm going to wrap this thing up, guys. Thank you so much. We're a little bit over an hour at this point. I really appreciate both of your times. You know, and, you know, check us out. Check out some of the other videos, you know, the UA videos if you haven't already, and you just happen to run across this one. And also check out IH Parts America. They're it's ihpartsamerica.com. Is that correct, Jeff?
yes, that's correct. And
and same thing with Instagram and all the socials and YouTube. They've got some great ancillary videos. YouTube that's kind of more their take on Unreal Adventure for this past year, which is really interesting because I think it fills in some blanks. We try and do a really good job of covering the event as a whole, but they did a really good job. It was their trip within the trip, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, it's always cool to
really
see from someone else's perspective.
Yeah,
it was such awesome coverage this year. I mean, like I said, not just because we had our own guy, but just what Ryan Foss put out this year too, and with all the different episodes you guys produced as well, and especially like the road days, which it's hard to. There's so many fun little things like, finding supernova air fresheners at some random gas station. There's so many just things that build camaraderie and make friends for lifetime, after each one of these events. I have so many friends I'm talking with even just today from UA's past. It's like once you wheel with these guys and stuff, it's just, it never stops,
Yeah, we've always wanted to be able to bring the audience in along with that. So it was really refreshing to be able to have the shackles off and do what we wanted to do this year.
You mentioned,
I think the comments really showed that.
Yeah, when you mentioned Matt Bocan, I still text with him to this day.
Yeah.
He was in UA 14 or 15 or something like that. There's been so many friends. I'm so blessed to have now so many friends all over the country because of UA. It's truly it's a special thing, that's for sure. So
it is. It's like I have my off-road / UA family, and I have my IH family. So
yeah. So and we're certainly glad that both you and Zaid are a part of it. That's for sure. So
well, yeah, we appreciate you guys, keeping that torch lit and keeping it going, and giving us an event to continue to go to, and like I said, it's not just the the event itself, but the history of it, and again, just growing up, it's just a nostalgic thing for me to be able to do it. We're blessed to do it. I'm just besides myself, to have my son with me every time doing this now, and it's just a great experience, and it's really helped us business wise as well. Regardless, even though I said off-roading is not our main avenue of business, it still has opened us up to so many new businesses and relationships and stuff. It's just been, it's like I won't say the gift that keeps on giving, but it's just been nothing but goodness that comes from it, between just awesome wheeling to being able to build awesome rigs for it, and the people and the business relationships and the beautiful country we get to go see. So yeah, it's a no-brainer for us.
Awesome. All right, guys.
Thanks for helping make it possible.
Yeah,
you
exactly. Bet. It wouldn't happen without support of you guys and many others as well. So, all right, we're going to wrap this thing up. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time here on the Adventure Media Podcast.